to a point in the road where we say, it's time for all of you who've been sitting so still for so long to actually get up and stretch around a bit, because we're going to be asking you what questions you would like to ask the panel. And we're going to have a short panel session that will run for about 15 minutes. And we're going to be asking each one of you if you have a question. So I'm just going to pop over here and we're going to open the floor, and I'm going to pick on someone to have the first question. So please be ready. Testing. All right, you can hear me. All right, I was only joking about asking someone a question, but I will come to that in a moment. But I think probably one of my first questions was firstly thinking about the foundation and Hera and the wonderful work that Hera is doing. And I just was curious to know, is there something that keeps you up at night where you're thinking about the foundation and the work that you're doing, or is there something that's so exciting that makes you think tomorrow is going to be that amazing day where I take the next step on a particular project?
Hello? It's on? No, Liz. It was really something that was mature along many, many years. 20 years ago, like in the beginning of the year 2000, I was working as an entrepreneur. This was all my life. I worked as an entrepreneur in a field that was not sustainable at all, aviation. And I realized I was the only woman in the world that was a CEO of an airline company, imagine. By the time I was the only one in the world. And that made me realize what is the role of women in this world. And I did social work all my life. Since I remember myself as a human being, I always helped social institutions. I still am a vice president of an institution that rescues 55 people from the streets every day. I help abandoned animals. So this is part of me as a human being. And but by the time I have decided I have to do something for women. And my family foundation, and talking about the sea, I talk today only about Hera, but I have to say that I'm very proud of my family foundation, Mipuri Foundation, because they are very active in cleaning the seas. They are really doing a wonderful job. They are raising awareness not only for the plastics problem that is a huge problem in all the oceans, but also on the climate changes. And we developed a beautiful and very serious work in this field. And I will go back to Hera, but this is important to say that inside my family foundation, I am leading a big project of cleaning the seas. That is the project of the good bottle. And the good bottle is the bottle that will replace the plastic bottle. It is a research that the Mipuri Foundation has sponsored together with the Portuguese University, Universidade do Minho. And we have arrived to good and positive conclusions, and we are going to present to the world the good bottle that is a biodegradable bottle that will replace the plastic bottle around the world. When I say replace, is that we will make them available for industrial, so that the industrials can opt for blowing this new material instead of the PET. That is the plastic. By the way, it's going to be compulsory because the plastic and the PET is going to be banished. So going back to Hera, yes, it was something that started some 20 years ago, and as I said when I spoke, I started as an informal movement, and then it led to what it is today. We are over 10 million around the world. And we are in all continents, including Australia and New Zealand. And we develop, what we develop is a macro message. What we are actually developing is a brand that is the Hera, the Light of Women, to create the awareness on what is the bigger project and target, that is the construction of the city in honor of women and for the future of humanity. So it is a mature project nowadays.
Thank you, Mariella. Now, is there anybody out there that I don't want to just pluck somebody out of a seat? Is there anybody that would like to ask a question to any of the panel? Now is your time. Okay, I see your hand up. And just speak out the question. Okay, was that you or not? Yes, yes. Thank you so much for those words. I have a question. I was talking to Ines about the deep ocean, and I said to her, I just imagine that it's probably quite black and dark down there. And she said, no, not at all. And I was like, are we on the same page? But anyway, I was so curious to know what it was really like down there, and why is it so important for us to be doing research work of the deep ocean?
Yeah, well, thank you. No, the deep sea is not black at all. That's one of the questions that the kids normally be at the classes and be astonished when we start showing them images of the deep sea. They look at us and start to ask us, but is that a color, a coral? Is that blue, or is that a yellow or orange color? Yes, we answer them, yeah, the deep sea has so many different colors. We thought everything was black and dark. And well, actually, when we put some lights on the communities that are down there, a lot of different colors emerge. And biodiversity that comes up shows you that there are a lot of colors that are common, like the whites and the reds. Those colors normally are not seen in the dark. The red light is the first to come out. So when an animal picks that color, it's an evidence that is going to be in the dark and is not going to be spotted by any other organism that is going to try to look for it. So yeah, the deep sea has too many colors, and it's not dull and black and white. And yes, the scientific research is very important because we want to be wise, we want to take wise decisions about the ocean. And if we don't know actually what it's down there, we cannot make a good decision on how to protect or how to conserve or how to manage things. So everyone was talking about how important is to take action, but we have to take action in a good direction. And that direction has to be supported with scientific data. With good scientific data, or else it's something that you do by impulse or something that you think you are doing it well, and at the end you can do it just the wrong way.
Very true. I have to share a tiny story. When we met the other day and we were sitting down, and the first thing we saw were these amazing test tubes with different creatures from the deep sea. But one of them took me totally by surprise. It was a little bit larger, and I was told, don't drink, it's not a cocktail, that's actually pure alcohol. But this particular type of coral, I'm just going to say, I know you're going to correct me, but it basically stays in the ocean. But then if it's feeling like, something could be threatening me, or I'm not sure about this, it actually just stands up, loosens its legs out of the sand, and it walks away. I thought that was absolutely incredible, and I'm sure that story will become quite elaborated as I tell it over the time. But just to know the characters that are in the deep sea, and the other thing to point out is that the deep sea plays a massive role in storage of CO2, right? And up to 30% of the carbon dioxide that we emit is actually kept in the deep sea. And of that deep sea, 60% of it goes into the Southern Ocean. So to that point that Ines is making is that we really do need to understand what is happening in the deep sea, because for so long we've thought that the deep sea was fast asleep, right? And that nothing was changing. But things are changing, and they're changing faster than we thought. And that really has an impact on the CO2 and the storage locker system that the ocean plays for us. And you know that everything that we're emitting now will have an effect in 30 years' time. So what we're feeling now is the movement of what we did 30 years ago. And so we have to remember that the climate system is a very slow-moving system, right? And it takes a long time for it to move and change. So we have to really manage what we're doing now, because it's the next generation that will carry the work of what we do or we don't do now. Anybody else like to make a comment on that one in the panel here? I know that Margarita, we're really focused on action, right? And we might just take that comment from you, and then we'll draw to a close on our comments for the United Nations tomorrow.
Hello? Hello? Is it working? Yeah, no, I was just thinking on the discussion you were having before, because some years ago, when we were fighting against trolling fishing, we were hearing there is nothing there. So what is your concern about it? And evidently, what we need is research in all areas. So the oceans are a huge part of our planet Earth. And if we don't do research on what the marine mammals need to survive, on what the coral reefs need to survive, all the biodiversity, the ecosystems, now we have learned a lot, and I'm very happy I learned a lot about that dark ocean, because I did think it was dark, to be honest, I must say, even at this age.
I've been told it's indigo blue, so get it right.
So my plea is that we really move into action, because Guterres, the Secretary General, said 2 days ago, the seas are facing an emergency. Almost we need to give air mouth to our seas. But then what is happening after everybody leaves Lisbon? Is anyone going to remember all these concerns, all these very valid points that have been raised during the conference, and start with a new issue next Monday when they get back home? So we need to push for the action. We need the civil society, we need the communications, because journalists have a key role to play, making these politicians accountable. Let's get the conclusions of the Lisbon conference and make sure that journalists around the world are not talking just about the war, which is very worrying, but also this is a war that affects the future and the present. All the future generations depend on what we do here and what we do in the next few months and the next few years. So that's why we need a movement, a global movement that really pushes for these conferences to stop being a place where everybody talks. We work very hard from one conference place to the next, but where action is taken after the conferences, not waiting until the next time we are in Lisbon. I don't think I'm going to be for the next one. I was for the previous one. But many of the things we are discussing here, we discussed them when I was here last time. So it's very worrying.
Yes, I agree. And I take your point too, and for the work that Sylvia's doing on communications and science, it's so important. I raised the point recently with a number of universities around the world to say I feel like we need to come up with a sort of a super comms group, would be my name to it. But, you know, like we need to work on our vernaculars. We need to have the same language. We need to talk about the same, need to talk about the issues the same way. And if we talk about the fact that the Earth is getting hot, that is wrong. It's actually that the climate system is changing and it's becoming unstable. So we're getting big swings in heat and big swings in cold, floods and droughts. And if we don't talk about it correctly, we allow so much room for climate deniers to come in and to actually plant their communications in an area that should really be watertight. So I do hope that we can get a number of the big Earth observatories around the world to work together. And the second point I'd like to make is that we also need to learn more about how we take a global story and we localise it. There was a story recently about the Antarctic ice sheet, and it was a massive, massive loss of ice that occurred. And that didn't even make the front news in my country. And it was because the story was so big, it was global. But actually the impact on us locally was enormous, but we hadn't translated that in our communication. So I also stress that it's so important to take global issues and then to translate those locally into what does that mean at a local level, at a community level, at a government level. It's just communications is very, very important in the future. And I'd like to also, congratulate the work that Mariana is doing on her work with youth and oceans. It's so important to be supporting young people doing such amazing work, and congratulations on that again. As a group that we said that we would like to put something to the UN tomorrow. This is a work in progress and it will be worked out a bit further. But we felt that because women, all of us here, Women of the Sea, wanted to take a message to the UN, and I would just like to read the draft that is a draft of what we are thinking we would like to say. That we call on all women to be mothers of the ocean, to bring the nurture, care and unique ability we have to support the life of the ocean. It is our time as never before, and perhaps never again, to step up and use our unique and inert ability to birth life and protect life. The ocean makes life possible and provides up to 70% of our oxygen and the building blocks of life on the planet. So it is time for all women to know how important they are to be part of the solution, to nurture, care and support our home, the blue planet. So I'd like to thank Margarita for giving us the inspiration to think about this. It's still a work in progress, but that is some work that this group is going to bring to the UN conference tomorrow afternoon. So as we work to wrap up, I think it's only right that we invite Christina, who is from United Oceans, who brought all of us together, to welcome her to the stage, to congratulate her on her vision and to say a few words.
I can only say thank you all. I'm so proud and honored to have you here. Although I know all of you, it was a wonderful surprise to listen to you together. So I believe we are in the correct path, and something practical can also raise from here, and I hope so, and let's make something from here. Please. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being with us this afternoon, and we'll draw the event to a close and stay around if you'd like to talk to any of the panellists here. And thank you again for attending and hearing all the stories of Women of the Sea. Thank you.